Welcome in, everyone, to the First Call Podcast. First Bet and Express Bet represented here. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. No political debates. We're going to get right into the handicapping here this weekend. We've got 8 stakes races for you on Saturday. Huge day at Churchill Downs. It's closing weekend in Louisville for their spring meet this year before things shift to Ellis Park. So Saturday's the big Stephen Foster Day card. Mandatory payouts on Sunday at Churchill Downs. Big day at Woodbine on Saturday. A lot of preps towards the King's Plate. The big race for the 3-year-olds up there. The Marine Stakes featured this Saturday. Also the Highlander, which will be our Express Bet race of the week. We'll mention that a little bit later. And of course at Los Alamitos, it's Derby Day on the West Coast. Jeff, Los Alamitos Derby, one of the races we'll take a look at this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's Churchill's got a great card. And by the way, the Foster card is terrific. And the closing day card is good as well. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at Churchill to dive in, especially with California kind of quiet up until Del Mar starts in 3 weeks. But some good gambling opportunities here. And I think Churchill is where I'm going to be trying to make my serious money this weekend.
In addition to Jeff and I's handicapping insights, you can get more at ExpressBet and at news.first.com. Scott Shapiro's got your Churchill Downs analysis for Saturday lined up. We'll also have some Sunday analysis for that mandatory payout. And there's also a mandatory payout Sunday at Gulfstream Park in the Rainbow Six. There was a mandatory last week, so it's not going to be a massive jackpot pool, but it's the last day of the fiscal year in Florida, and they've got to clean out the pot. So mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six on Sunday at Gulfstream. We'll get some picks from Eddie Olczyk on the website up later this weekend, so be sure to check back for those. Here are the races Jeff and I will handicap for this big Saturday of action coming up for June the 29th. For those of you watching on Twitter, X, or on YouTube, be sure to hit the like and share this out to other folks around the world watching here on the First Call Podcast. For those of you listening on our traditional audio channels, here's a rundown of the races. We'll start off with the Manila Stakes at Belmont at the Big A. Aqueduct hosting that one on the grass. Looks like good conditions for racing this Saturday in New York. Also good conditions for racing in Louisville, Kentucky at Churchill Downs, where their 6 stakes races that we'll look at include the Wise Dan, the Floride Lee, the American Derby on turf, the Kelly's Landing, the Stephen Foster, and the Tepin back on the grass. Should be fast and firm at Churchill Downs. And at Los Alamitos, we will wrap things up with the Los Al Derby. I want to remind you the 2 big tracks this weekend, Churchill and Woodbine. If you bet $100 on both of those tracks on Saturday's card, you get $25 back. So that's more than a 10% rebate. Bet the $200, $100 on each track, Woodbine and Churchill. Any way you play the $100, make sure you opt into the promo and you'll get $25 put back into your account if you bet $100 on Churchill and Woodbine coming up on this Saturday of racing. So let's start things off in New York, Jeff. Again, should be fast and firm at Belmont at the Big A. The Manila Stakes, grade 3 here on the turf, going a mile. Of course, named after the 1986 Breeders' Cup Turf winner. Of course, he was a Hall of Famer as well for trainer Leroy Jolly back in 2008. I'm going to give you a little Swami angle for the Manila. How's this one for you? All right. 1986 champion turf horse, Breeders' Cup Turf winner. You've got Mattingly in this race. In 1986, Don Mattingly hit 352 with 31 homers, 113 RBIs, and was second in the MVP voting. So 86 was a big year for Manila. It was a big year for Don Mattingly. How do you go against Mattingly on the rail?
He's got a good chance. In fact, top to bottom a chance. When I was handicapping this race, I begin by throwing out the horses that I know I'm never going to play. Doesn't mean they can't win, but deterministic. I don't know how much handwriting you need on the wall to come to the conclusion that maybe he might be better around one turn. And this one turn, it's kind of like, it used to be, because at Belmont, it used to be kind of a 1.5 turn mile. This is a 2-turn mile at Aqueduct. And until deterministic shows me that he can act around 2 turns, I don't want any part of him. I don't care. Grass. He doesn't really have a grass pedigree. I think it's just one of these situations where you might as well find out now, if nothing else. But I'm going to leave him alone. I ended up going to Move to Gold. It looks like a fairly genuine type of horse. He's only had 4 starts. He's got room to improve. Numbers are okay, not great, but he did win on this course second time of his career, won the Awad Stakes last October. And he came from way out of it. He can really turn it on late. His overall numbers are okay, nothing great, but I know what I'm going to get from him. And I did like his Jersey Derby race. Got me the nose that day, ran a winning race. So I know the pace it should be okay for a small field. I don't think they'll be crawling, but
Right.
I don't think it matters to move to gold. He'll just draft in behind the horses. And these races are usually determined by who can finish the best, not who makes the lead. So I think Move to Gold can finish the best, and so I'll put him on top and see what we can get.
He's coming off a big rally where he came up just a nose short in the Jersey Derby. Let's go back and take a look at that one with Matt Dinnerman on the call.
And Move to Gold's getting into the race. Move to Gold, let loose behind horses now, gets outside, and he's ready to roll at the top of the lane. Fidel Light Cayute being swarmed on both sides. Outside, Twirling Point's trying to get there. Move to Gold, moving quickly, grandstand side. It's Twirling Point. Fidel Light Cayute has run a massive race. He's got the ears pinned back. He's determined. Here's Move to Gold. 3-horse photo, very tight. I think Twirling Point between horses got it.
And Matt was right on that. It was Twirling Point by a nose, but Move to Gold. Good effort in that spot. Manny Franco picks up the mount now for a return engagement. He was the rider in the Awad Stakes last time. This one was in New York for Chad Brown. So a rider who's won a board in the past. I kind of like to see that, Jeff, when they come back and team up again. Joking aside on Mattingly, he could be real speed in here and be pretty effective and take him a long way. He's run 5.5 and 6 in his last couple. He showed some speed last year at 2, going a mile on the 16th. I don't know if he can last a 2-turn mile, but he's going to be inside speed in here and take him as far as he can under Trevor McCarthy. But I think you've got the right one in Move to Gold, race number 7 on Saturday at Belmont Park. Let's shift our gears now to Churchill Downs on Saturday's program. Again, a 6-pack of major stakes races here. Biggest day of the season at Churchill Downs when you get past Oaks and Derby. It's closing weekend. Look, they had to move this card last year to Ellis Park as the Churchill meet ended abruptly before the season ended. They're back at Churchill proper for this year's season finale. Big card here coming up this weekend. Saturday's main events start in race number 7 with the Wise Dan Stakes. Mile on the 16th on the turf here. Of course, the Wise Dan named for the Horse of the Year back in 2012 and 2013. 2-time Breeders' Cup mile winner in those 2 years. So we've got a turf mile like we should in honor of this Hall of Famer.
Good race. Again, for 3-year-olds, mile on the 16th. Ottoman Fleet is a very nice Godolphin gelding. Won his last race at Churchill and looked good doing it. He's probably the one to beat. But I was really blown away by Win for the Money's win in the Mr. Steele at Gulfstream Park. We watched him train on video. It looked like he was ready for a peak effort. And you very rarely see this when you have a horse who's run, several times, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, he shows up and just turns in a freaky performance. He earned a 102 Byron number in that race at Gulfstream. And his other numbers in his previous 12 races were up to they were like high 80s, low 90s. This left him far behind from what he'd been doing. And he came on the heels of a good workout. So I think Mark Casse may have figured him out. And the way he's been running and training and his stalking style should put him wherever Jose Ortiz wants to be. I think he's going to be tough, even though he's going to have to improve to beat Ottoman Fleet. But I think he may have it in him. I think he's on the verge of developing into being a very, very nice horse in his division. So I'm going to go with Win for the Money to win the Wise Dan. That's a race at Churchill Downs, a middle distance race for 3-year-olds.
Ottoman Fleet at even money in the morning line seems a little bit short. I mean, I think he will go favorite in here, but I think there's some other options. And if he is bet down, that's going to give us a better price on the ones that we do like. Win for the Money, as you mentioned last time out, could not have been more visually impressive. Let Pete Aiello tell you how it happened down at Gulfstream.
Gonzalez on Win for the Money, making a bold bid to take over from Main Event, who was softened up after that early skirmish. Running home from the back is Eldon's Prince. They're at the top of the stretch. It's Win for the Money. He's looking good, 1/8 of a mile out. He's 4 to the good. Main Event is second with work to do to hold that spot, is charging Eldon's Prince and me and Mr. C. But look at this performance in the Mr. Steele. Win for the Money, indeed. Sharp by 6 in the end. Eldon's Prince was second, me and Mr. C third. Close.
Hey, Jeff, what about Exalted in here in the Wise Dan? This is a West Coast horse you're very familiar with, but fans haven't seen this runner since the end of the Del Mar meet last summer. So it's been, 10 months on the sidelines since last September. What do you make of Exalted, who once he became a turf miler, it was like punch out for him. It was just win, 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 win throughout the course of the summer last year.
The thing about Exalted is I went back and watched some of his workouts on XBTV leading up to this race. He hadn't been out since last September. He does not have a history of necessarily running well fresh. So I thought maybe there was a possibility that he might need this race. The workouts were fairly solid, but I went back and watched him work out. I think he might be a little rusty. I mean, the times look good, bullet work, but the times are always fast on the all-weather, and so I don't think that proves anything. I would like to see a race underneath him, especially if I'm expecting him to run the best race that he's capable of running, because he's going to have to do that if he's going to beat Win for the Money, if Win for the Money runs back to the race we just saw. I mean, this horse, that was his 13th start, and it was so much better than anything he'd ever done.
Right.
Based on the workouts, I think we both thought that he was ready to do that, and he did. And so I want to see one from Exalted. I could be wrong about him, but I just think that based on the way he normally trains and the way I saw him train, I said to myself, I think he's going to need it.
Yeah.
And Win for the Money is probably going to run his race, and he's almost on the verge of. He does the same thing in this race that he did last time out in a listed race at Gulfstream. Then he's going to be among the better middle distance turf horses in the country based on what I just saw. And he's got to do it again, but I think he will.
Good insight there on your top pick, as well as the return for Exalted. Let's go next to the 8th race at Churchill Downs on Saturday. The Floride Lee, the Flower of the Lilies. Of course, this is the track of the Lilies, Kentucky Oaks, a mile and an eighth. Not the track of the Lakes and Lilies. That was Hollywood Park back in the day. But Churchill Downs, Floride Lee is a mile and an eighth on the main track here. No Idiomatic in this race, who won the La Troyenne. News for Brad Cox that last year's champion Distaff mare is going to head to the Molly Pitcher at Monmouth Park next. So no Idiomatic in this particular spot. Fear not, though. Brad Cox is, got plenty of options with Idiomatic throughout the course of the year. And in this field of 6, it's not a bunch of leftovers in here, Jeff. I could not take my pencil and draw a line through any of these. I think all 6 have a reasonable chance in the exacta. Some may be better on the win end, but there's not a toss out in this race. A lot of times a 6-horse field, you wish you had a deeper field size, but exactas aren't going to be easy in this particular spot. Unfortunately, you're not going to have the math in here to play the deeper exotics. The tries and the supers aren't going to be very efficient going after those in just a 6-horse field. But this is a pretty good group.
Yeah, it is. This division's pretty deep this year. I mean, I think in the Breeders' Cup, if everybody can stay healthy, normally with the Breeders' Cup, you end up with 7, 8 horses. So you don't very rarely see 12 or 13
right
in the Breeders' Cup distaff. But there's a possibility this year that we're going to have a rather deep field, because there's 3 or 4 in here that I know are good enough to be in the race. And there's several in here that are going to be running that are just kind of waiting their turn, like Adair Manor and the rest of those. I mentioned Idiomatic, and then we have Scylla here, who has not quite reached that level yet, but is knocking on the door, so to speak. And with her pedigree, she should get nothing but better. And she's only had the 6 starts with 4 wins, so I definitely think that she is going to be tough to beat. But I also think that this is a more contentious field than she's seen. It's like a next step. It's like right below the best, but it's better than tougher than what she's seen. I don't know what got into Shotgun Hottie. This is kind of like a Win for the Money type play for me, where you've seen her, you kind of think you know what she's capable of doing, and then she turns around and wins the DuPont at Pimlico on Preakness Day, and looks like Adair Manor in doing so. I thought that was just a terrific race. Career top buyer number of 99, which, by the way, is better than anything Scylla has ever done, even though I expect Scylla to be a shorter price. But I thought Shotgun Hottie's last win, maybe it was just she liked Pimlico or whatever the case was. But if she runs back to that race, I think she's going to come right back and win again, and I think she'll be a decent price.
It was a weekend where Cherie DeVoe could do no wrong over the course of the stakes leading up on Preakness weekend. Shotgun Hottie was one of, I think, 4 graded stakes winners that she took up to Baltimore. Let's go back for Dave Rodman's call of the Allaire DuPont Distaff. back on May 17th at Pimlico.
Musical Mischief will go on with Shotgun Hottie. Lacey Be Good under pressure back in third position. Julius Shining is fourth. Intrepid Dream is fifth. And Queen of Missoula and Western Lane, a quarter to go at Pimlico. They're into the stretch. Shotgun Hottie, Musical Mischief. They're right together. Just about a furlong left to go. Paco Lopez and Shotgun Hottie. They begin to get away. Opening up 2 lengths on Musical Mischief. And it's far back to Julius Shining in third. Here's Shotgun Hottie. She's coming home strong. Shotgun Hottie and the Hilaire de Pontistaff to win by about 5 or so.
So you've got her coming off the big win. You got Scylla coming off a win. They're in the matchup. Scylla's mare, we got to mention it. She's by Tappet out of Closed Hatches. Of course, she was the star multiple grade 1 winner for Belmont. What a mare she's turned out to be, of course, with the Ohio Derby winner just coming on the heels last week of Batten Down. You had not Tappet Trice, but who was the one a couple of years ago? I'm losing my mind. The really good Closed Hatches horse who I'm having one of those debate moments. We were saying we're not going to have a debate moment here, but I won't say which one. But so I mean, Scylla, Closed Hatches. I mean, it's been just a tremendous family going down through the line there. So I keep wanting to say Tappet Trice, and I know darn well it's not Tappet Trice. So people listening to the podcast here, put it down in the comments. Set me straight in here. Who's the obvious horse that I'm missing? Everybody made fun of the horse for running second or third all the time. See, I'm showing my age here now. No. Tacitus, yes, Tacitus.
I figured I'd let you. I knew it all along. I figured I'd let you struggle a little bit just to see how far you can go. No,
it was very much like the debate last night. Yeah. Thanks for playing along with that. All right, let's go to the 9th race now at Churchill Downs on Saturday. It's the American Derby, mile and a 16th. A group of 8 in here, Jeff. Let's go through some of the top contenders in here. You've got Green Light coming off a win last time that we're going to get a look at in just a moment. Agate Road's a horse who just from 2 to 3 doesn't seem like he's made a big move forward, but he's 7 to 2 in the morning line. I think Depiction's got a shot playing in here. First World War's a horse I saw in the Penn Mile win with Frankie Dettori last time out at Penn National, coming back trying to win stakes back-to-back for Brendan Walsh. Another good-looking group in here. And then you've got Cherie DeVoe again with another up-and-comer in Brilliant Birdie off of 2 straight wins. How do you see the American Derby, a race used to be run at Arlington Park, now a Churchill Downs fixture this time of year? Who do you like in the American Derby?
It's no big deal. I mean, the old school handicapper, like when I first, started learning how to handicap, would never take a maiden winner and right back in a graded stakes. This is not a graded stakes, but as you mentioned, it used to be. But last week we saw the Ohio Derby winner come back out of a maiden win and just kind of blow away his field. We all liked him. I mean, Batten Down, and I see a lot of that in Green Light here, Jeremy, where it took a while to break his maiden. Not that long, just 3 races. But he wins a race on the grass. It's just a maiden race. But he does so in such a manner that it's nothing for this colt to step right into listed stakes company and win again. I mean, you'd think, oh, well, he might, it's a big drop in, raise in class. No, it really isn't, And especially the way the race shapes up where, I mean, you look at this race, Jeremy, and who is going to take the racetrack from Green Light? I mean, nobody. He's got the rail. He just won very impressively over this same course and distance. He earned a 92 Beyer number. His previous number was 82. Previous to that, it was 67. So in 3 races, he's just improved so much.
Right.
And visually, it will show the race. He was so impressive in doing so. I don't know what Green Light's going to be, but I mean, I'd be hard pressed to think that he won't be a very solid favorite based not only on his numbers, the improvement factor, and the race shape. I think Green Light's going to come back and do it again.
Yeah, something you give the best horse in the race a pace advantage. They don't give it back too often. If he is the best horse off this last win, then look out. Here's Green Light last time out. Travis Stone with the call.
Green Light has taken charge and suddenly put 3 lengths on the field. They're off the turn. Green Light in front by 4 now. Cloudy Holiday clear sailing, but it's now 5 lengths behind in second. Sugar Hook is racing third. Cabernado toward the inside 4th. No doubt about first. It's Green Light, who wins by 10 on the wire.
Margins like that get bet back, so you can expect the public to be on Green Light in this one. I thought Depiction was interesting. There's not enough race setup in this race to probably win it. But this horse got no help last time. 48, 112 for the half and 3/4, and still rallied to win over this course. It was the first time with Lasix, now without the Lasix. So we're not going to, I don't know what we're going to get from Depiction, but I like the jockey fit in here. Going to Joel Rosario, a good closing rider, should be a good fit. I think Depiction has a chance to make a little bit of noise late in this particular spot, but it's probably green light in First World War to be a pretty chalky exactly. If you can split them up, maybe Depiction would be the one to get between them. Let's move to the 10th on Saturday. It's the Kelly's Landing Stakes, Churchill Downs, 6.5 furlongs. Kelly's Landing, if you don't know about him, he was an Eddie Connealy trainee, won $1.8 million sprinting, and he was awfully fast, Jeff. Back in 2005, he won the Aristides at Churchill in 107.59, setting the track record. That stood for a couple years, but the track record's now 107.55. They shaved 4 100ths off his track record, but one of the better local horse-for-course sprinters, Kelly's Landing. He's got a race in his honor here, going 6.5 furlongs. And horse for course at Churchill, you got to talk about Bango, the 21-time winner. Nobody's won more horses in the more races in the storied history of Churchill Downs over that racetrack than Bango. But he just doesn't seem like he's the same horse this year. And you can say that about a couple of them. I don't think Tejano Twist has been as good as he has been in some past spots. Where are we at with Hoist the Gold now at age 5, who's been running against Stuffer? Is this a spot where you want to try to just find somebody else in this particular spot? Where are you leaning?
That's exactly what I tried to do. I see, like, for example, Bango. He was so far below his form last time out over this racetrack. He'd won 11 races but prior to that race at the restricted stakes at Churchill. It was his first start since the Breeders' Cup, but he was a flat 4th, beat 7 lengths at 2-5, and he was supposed to win that race, not finish a well-beaten 4th without any excuse that I could find. I don't know whether at age 7 Bango is what he used to be. I don't think that Tejano Twist is, or maybe he just doesn't like Churchill as much as he likes Oaklawn. But bottom line is he's run 12 times, just 2 wins and no seconds, so he doesn't handle the track all that well. Hoist the Gold, he was in Saudi Arabia. He came back. He's kind of lacked his usual punch. I think that trip might have wiped him out a little bit. I want to see more from him. Then an Anarchist. I like Anarchist, but I haven't seen him since last summer.
Right.
His works are very average. Again, a horse that doesn't have a great history of running well fresh, and a rail. So I ended up really with the Now horse. The lightly raced Close the Game Sugar. All he did was go out and beat Skelly. I'm sorry, but if you can beat Skelly, you can beat this field, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And he did it with a career top 99 bar number. Sometimes you see a horse win a race and beat another horse, and the number comes up average, and basically you have to conclude that he didn't win, the other horses just lost, But this time he rose the bar, raised the bar for himself in what was just his 7th career start. Goes out and beats Skelly. And again, much the best in terms of the career top figure. I'm just hoping he can do it again. The good news is that it came at Churchill Downs, so we know he likes the track. It's this race is 6.5, which looks like it should be a perfect distance for him. And I just think if he can keep building on what was a very impressive win last time out, he can score right back. So I'm going to go Close the Game Sugar to win the Kelly's Landing in the 10th race at Churchill on Saturday.
Just a $10,000 buy by Gervin, I should say, and he's earned $372,000 with multiple stakes wins. Everybody would like to have a Close the Game Sugar in your barn, given those financials. Let's go back and take a look at that last win last time out in the Aristides with Travis Stone.
5th, Pain is 6th. They're off the turn. Skelly heads for home in front by 2. Close the Game Sugar's now 2nd and closing in. Hear My Song gives way. Tejano Twist and Pain for long to go. Skelly has to dig in. Here comes Close the Game Sugar trying to catch Skelly in the final 16th. And Close the Game Sugar does. Upset winner defeating Skelly on the wire.
All right, so let's go to the main event on Saturday at Churchill Downs. It's the 11th on the card, the Grade 1 Stephen Foster, $1 million. Important race now. As we get past the Triple Crown, everybody starts the road to the Breeders' Cup in our minds. And this road to the Breeders' Cup in the Classic division starts at Churchill Downs with the Foster at 1 mile and an eighth. A good-looking field in here. We've got some accomplished runners. First Mission hasn't done very much wrong in his career, Jeff. He's the morning line favorite for Mike Battaglia at 6-5. Of course, Brad Cox trains First Mission, coming off a win on Derby weekend in the Ali Sheba Stakes. This is a horse who's won 5 of 8. The 2 seconds are by 3/4 of a length combined. He just didn't show up in the Pegasus World Cup. Every other race, he's been right there, but he's a horse who hasn't, been able to run out a long string of races before he's been sidelined in his career. So he's coming 4th race back in his form cycle now. Will we follow up on the Ali Sheba, or are we looking for a step back from First Mission?
I don't see it. I obviously First Mission is the horse to beat, although you could make a case for Skippy Longstocking. First Mission's earned triple-digit buyers in 3 out of his last 4 starts. And the last 2 were just very impressive. He was bet like he couldn't lose. He didn't. He's a lightly raced street sense colt, 5 out of 8 first, actually 7 out of 8 first or second. With improvement, good tactical speed, he's relatively young and lightly raced. I can't make him anything other than strictly the one to beat, but I'm going to try to beat him, and this is strictly for price.
Okay.
If someone asked me, do I really think the horse I'm going to pick is going to beat First Mission or even Skippy Longstocking, I would say probably not. But at 12-1 in the morning line, Pyrenees is a colt that is really starting to get good, and he's won his last 4 in a row. I like the fact that his buyer numbers have gone from 80 to 88 to 90 to 93. So colt by into Mischief, he's not done improving. Now, this is clearly the toughest test of his career, but he comes off a grade 3 win at Pimlico Special, and beat a nice horse that day, King's Barnes. And if someone told me that King's Barnes was going to get the kind of trip that he got in that race and get beat, I would have said no chance. But so not only was the number strong, but Pyrenees beat a very good colt and had to wear him down, a colt that had a perfect trip. Again, he's going to have to step forward again, but he gets the rail. He's going to get a good stalking trip. He can be on the lead if they want him to be. It doesn't have to be. He can sit second or third. I think he's gonna run the race of his race. Is it good enough based on the numbers? Not yet. He's gonna have to improve more, but he's not yet taken a backward move. So at 12-1, I think Pyrenees has got a chance to pull off a surprise. For me, he's worth a gamble.
Be very interesting to see all these successful Pimlico Preakness weekend horses for Cherie DeVoe are all coming back on the same time frame, and you're going to get to see 2 or 3 of them before we get to the Stephen Foster. If several of them kind of run back and don't run as well as they did last time, maybe you get a little tight when you're thinking about this one. But if they're all coming back and holding their form or improving off of that effort, you get more confident with Pyrenees. So this is a horse you want to keep your eye on. The undercard horses, we've talked about a few of them coming back for Cherie DeVoe that have already we've already talked about, but they come off the exact same time frame of that big Preakness weekend, and now to the Stephen Foster. In fact, let's go back and watch that Pimlico Special. Dave Rodman on the call. You'll get to see Pyrenees wearing down his return rival, King's Barnes. King's Barnes for Todd Pletcher is back in this race too in the Stephen Foster.
A race toward the top of the stretch with a quarter to go at Pimlico. It's Harlow Cap, a tenacious customer down to the inside. King's Barnes on the outside is asked the question. King's Barnes on the outside, down to the inside, Harlow Cap. They're head-to-head for the lead. Pyrenees is trying to close the gap toward the center of the track, but it's King's Barnes who's digging down. Harlow Cap down to the inside, still there, and Pyrenees on the outside. Pyrenees coming at King's Barnes. King's Barnes, here's Pyrenees. Pyrenees surging at King's Barnes. A thriller in the Pimlico Special, and Pyrenees and Brian Hernandez Jr. get up to win.
Another horse I want to give a look to in this Stephen Foster, Jeff, is Disarm. This is the horse who last year was one of the better 3-year-olds. He didn't get any of the major trophies, but he was there in all the big races right around it. 2nd in the Travers, 4th in the Kentucky Derby, runner-up in the Louisiana Derby. He's been aimed to have a really big 4-year-old year. I know the Winchell folks and Asmussen have really been looking forward to seeing this horse as a Breeders' Cup Classic contender this year at 4. He's only had the one start, so he's going to have a real second half of the kind of campaign. His return race wasn't that great, but this is second off the layoff. And if you go back in his form cycle, there are 2 of those. His second start of his career, he won easily at Saratoga, breaking his maiden. And in his second start as his 3-year-old year was the runner-up, good effort in the Louisiana Derby, the first time he stepped up into stakes company. He's run well second off the layoff in the past. I would expect him to run a pretty good race. This is a tough field. Somebody good's going to run 4th in this particular spot, but I think this arm's got a shot to make a little bit of noise.
Certainly does. He's got 4 consecutive triple-digit Bayern numbers before they put him away. Nothing wrong with his second place finish in the Travers behind Arcangelo. Earned a career top number that day. Now he comes off a layoff and he wins at 1-5. The number was average, but I don't think they had him terribly cranked up that day. He just outclassed the 3 rivals he ran with. I think the race was perfect for the comeback. Now with that race under his belt, and looks like he's been training well since. Disarm is a major player. I mean, he really is. As is First Mission, as is Skippy Longstocking. Can't really knock him. So this is I would say, for what the local handicap division normally is this time of the year, this is a good race. This is it's better than the Gold Cup or the Santa Anita Handicap, if I want to compare this race to the races we have out west. And I'm not sure that there are many older races on the East Coast that are as good as this. This is, you win this race, you're right there in the older division, unless the 3-year-olds step up to the plate, which you never know about them until the fall. But good race. I'm very eager to see if First Mission can continue his dominance, whether the horse that I like at a price, Pyrenees, can act at this level, whether Skippy can do what he needs to do to win, which is an outside draw, which he had last time and didn't bother him at all there. So really, really good race. Well worth playing and well worth watching.
With First Mission, Skippy Longstocking, you almost feel like one of those two's got to be in the number when you're talking about the exacta, but you want to try to get one of those price horses in there with them, or use the price horse in the win spot and take advantage of an overlay potential in there with the 2 favorites taking a bit more of the money. Really good betting race. I think the Stephen Foster one you want to keep an eye on. Again, for more on that race and the whole Churchill Downs pick 6 sequence on Saturday, be sure to check out Scott Shapiro's blog at news.first.com and expressbet.com. He'll give you his local Kentucky know-how in that one. So let's go to the 12th, the Tepin Stakes, coming up on the card Saturday at Churchill. 1 mile on the turf, $250,000. Of course, Tepin, the great $4 million earner, 22 Hall of Fame inductee, in 2015 and 2016. She won the Breeders' Cup Mile, the Queen Anne Stakes, 2 Eclipse Awards. She was as good as it gets for disc staffers on the turf here in the last several years in the U.S. There are no Tepins in the Tepin Stakes, but we've got some pretty lightly raced 3-year-old fillies in here that have some chance to get good, Jeff. And I know one of them that you like really has only had a handful of starts. She's got 4 of them. She's won 3. Tell us about Pipsy.
This is a fun race for me to handicap because I was able to go back and do some really good research on this filly. And one of the reasons I was able to do this is because I can go to ExpressBet and look at not only the replays from all the local horses, the North American horses, but they give you all the Euro races as well. So I went back and watched every one of her races, trying to figure out whether her win in the Soaring Softly race was as legit as it may be, and it was. She got beaten her first start, Pipsy, as a 2-year-old in Ireland last September, but the colt that beat her won his next 2 starts, including a stakes. He hasn't run back this year, King Kwan, but he won the race, and you can see in winning that maiden race that he was a good race. And Pipsy was 7 lengths clear of everybody else. So then she comes back and wins a maiden race at the Curragh and does that just for fun, And then she comes back and wins a listed stakes race on the all-weather at Dundalk. And let me tell you about Pipsy. She is really, really fast. I'm talking about front-running speed type fast. You would never know it if you watched her U.S. debut in the Soaring Softly, because in that race, she did everything the opposite of what she had done in Ireland. In Ireland, she busted out of the gate and ran everybody off her feet. Then in the last race, the U.S. debut, she got absolutely stoned left at the gate and eliminated. Well, she wasn't eliminated because she won. But you would have thought if you'd stopped the video, you'd say, okay, she has no chance. Came from way out of it, got a great ride, relaxed, switched off, didn't try to run off, didn't try to do anything wrong, just said, okay, I'm last. I'll make the best of it. Boy, was she impressive. And now she goes into this race with no speed in it. I wouldn't be surprised to see her on the lead, but I would be very surprised if they get her beat. This is a really, really good filly. And again, if you saw her win at Aqueduct going 3/4 of a mile, you figure there's no chance she won't run farther and then some. And no matter what happens, no matter where she's going to be, I think she will win this race in the Teppan. So anyway, take a look for yourself and tell me what you think.
Well, let's go ahead. Back to the replays. The Soaring Softly stage from Belmont at Aqueduct last month.
And they're off. They're going straight up in the air was Pipsy at the start as 4 lengths the trailer. Speed towards the back end there. Far back as Artemis Sound is there with the trailer. Pipsy, 22.42 for the opening quarter mile. 2 long shots up top. Tiger Bell to the inside, to the outside Independence Avenue. Here comes the run from Caress 3 wide. Kaitiyu is in the orange cap looking for a way through amidst waves. Nowhere to go right now. They've got run, but nowhere to go. The leader is Tiger Bell. Tiger Bell, Independence Avenue now ready to pounce amidst waves. Kaitiyu is trying to get out of there. Kodiak Wintergreen is holding that spot. Pipsy, green cap, grandstand side off slowly, but Pipsy is rolling. Here comes Pipsy. Now in the clear is Kaitiyu. Down towards the inside amidst waves. Can Pipsy get up in time? Kaitiyu is now bursting in between rivals. It's Pipsy. Pipsy will win. Pipsy wins the Soaring Softly. Kaitiyu up for second. Amidst waves is in a photo with Independence Avenue in 1 minute 9.41 seconds.
What a patient ride from Flavian Pratt. When you blow the start like that, let's just save some ground, slingshot off the turn, don't lose any ground trying to go on around horses, and then angle out and see what you've got in the stretch. He's back to ride for Will Walden again, and what a U.S. debut from Pipsy in that race in the Soaring Softly. This race, maybe the speed, if it's not Pipsy, if she doesn't break again, poolside with Slim can show speed in here. Tyler Gaffleone's going to take them out. Frankie Dettori won the Penn Oaks aboard this filly last time out, but Dettori jumps to ride the 11 just better. Justify filly, who was second in the Hilltop Stakes on Preakness weekend last time out. Again, if there's not a lot of pace in here, if Pipsy breaks, she's probably the speed. If she doesn't, maybe it's poolside with Slim or just better. So I would look at 8, 5, and 11 to me are the keys to this race, Jeff. And to me, that's the way to go with it. I think Pipsy's the winner in here like you do. 5 and 11 underneath, probably the horses for me to watch in the exactas.
You mentioned Pratt's ride, and of course the horse has to cooperate because sometimes, you get left and then they rush up. And that always inspires me to, whenever that happens, I would always do this. Where are you going? I mean, if you blow the race at the start, you're not going to rush up and win. And Flavian didn't do that, but the cooperation that Pipsy showed, even though she is normally a front runner, to me, that was the most impressive part of the race. I mean, and she came in, the leaders came in 23 and 4 from the last quarter of a mile. So what did she come home? So it's good to know that she can utilize her natural turn of foot whenever it's needed. And I love Pratt's ride. And this is a good competitive race. I mean, I love the racing at Churchill this weekend. This is not even a graded stakes today in the Teppan, but they are hanging up with $250,000. I think that's just as important. But I can't wait for this race because I want to see what Pipsy will do if they throw a curveball at her, and she's going to make the lead, which she could do. So anyway, that's the 12th and final, and then the end of just a terrific card at Churchill Downs.
No doubt about it. And again, if you bet $100 on that card and $100 on the card at Woodbine on Saturday with First Bet and Express Bet, you'll get $25 back. So basically bet 200, get 25, more than a 10% rebate there, playing Woodbine and Churchill Downs on Saturday. Be sure to opt into the promos on the First Bet app or on the desktop at expressbet.com when you play in order to take advantage of that $25 back special. Now, let's go to Los Alamitos on Saturday. It's the Los Alamitos Derby, and maybe just rename this one for Bob Baffert. He's won it 7 years in a row. 13 times overall. It's the former swap stakes at Hollywood Park, and Baffert's back again with one of the major players. In fact, two of the major players in just a 5-horse field. He's got Winstock in here, who won the Los Al Futurity in December, but just hasn't been the same at age 3. And then he's got this one in here, Cornell, Jeff, the 3-year-old who was working with the older horse, Arabian Night and Company recently. We're watching video from XBTV with Cornell to the inside. Tell us about this colt for SF Racing and Company and his chances on Saturday.
Never thought he was all that great, quite frankly. It was 9th and didn't get much play in his debut at Del Mar last year, last November as a 2-year-old. And then he was 3rd beaten 10 lengths in a maiden race. He's better now than he was then. You can see him on the inside. That's no less a horse than Arabian Night, who's actually being ridden on the outside to stay up with Cornell. Cornell under mild coaxing. Arabian Night's having to be asked a bit. He hit the wire, and Cornell is still in front. Again, mild urging, 59-2, gallops out nicely. Cornell coming off a race in which he was well beaten 3rd behind Parenting, who is probably as good a 3-year-old as Baffert has right now. So that was okay. And I think from the 2-hole, he's going to be right behind the leaders. The pace situation doesn't look that taxing. I mean, Tapolo is going to go, and if nobody goes with him, I think Cornell has a chance to sit right behind him, or if Winstock goes, then maybe he'll sit 3rd. But based on that workout and the improving pattern, I think Cornell's got a chance to win this race, and I don't think he's going to be terribly short, that very sharp workout notwithstanding. So I will go with Cornell, who was ridden by Maldonado. And by the way, Baffert once told me that, he doesn't use Maldonado that often, but he says, I will if I have a speed horse who needs to be sent. I think he's telling me that he's going to be sent Cornell, and maybe sit 2nd or 3rd. I mean, there's only 5 in here, but I mean, to me, put him in the race is what I'm trying to say. I think he's much more effective when he's right in the field, as opposed to being taken back and trying to make one run with it. But I don't think he wants to do that. So I like Cornell to win the Los Alamitos Derby. You could do wrong and just take any Baffert blindly in the race, and you probably have a 75% chance of being right. But for me, Cornell to win the Los Al Derby.
Curious what they do with Tapolo at the windows. The 101 buyer in the last Barrera, 7/8 of a mile sprint last time. We'll see if he can get the trip at 1 1/8 miles. He almost lasted in the El Camino Real Derby on the synthetic before being run down by Endlessly. It looks like he's got the rail. It's a sharp turns there at Los Alamitos and a very long stretch. So how can Tapolo survive the 2 Bafferts through the stretch is probably how this race shakes out when you just look at how it's going to play out. Tapolo with the lead, turn it for home and see what happens, and take your best chance there maybe under Barrios.
I was tempted, and my first impression was, before I saw the workout, to take Tapolo. The only concern I have with Tapolo is he's an inside speed horse, and that's not the way to win a race at Los Al. It's deeper on the inside. If you watch the races, these jocks will take, if they're in front turning the stretch, they will never stay on the rail. They'll drift off to the 4 or 5 path. And if Winstock is sent and pins him in there, and then allows Cornell to sit behind him and then circle him, I think visually, I've seen this race so many times that if I do, the players in the race will cooperate. I've already seen it, but it's tough. I would much rather have seen Tapolo be drawn the 5-hole where he can just sit out there and then go. But if he's forced into a pace situation with Baffert's other horse, Winstock, who's got speed and can do it, then it might be a tough task for Tapolo.
I just love the way you just broke that down there, because that's my theory to handicapping. It's like the children's game Concentration, right? The card game where you're like flipping everything over and you're trying to remember where you saw something, right? Yeah. And you flip it and you see it. And you just said, I've seen this before, right? Like a race that looks just like this with a setup just like this over this particular track and 2 turns and whatever. You kind of know how these races play out. And now this is just a repeat of that. Who can fit that mold is kind of, and if you think you can get the horse who fits the right spot and gets the right kind of trip in this race, you've seen it before, you'll see it again. And I just think these things repeat so often in horse racing over time. And, it's not different in other sports, right? Particular matchups turn out a certain way. And these are why managers bring this guy in against left-handers and right-handers and all that, right? I mean, you're trying to match up what you've seen in the past past and projected forward. But I love the way you broke that down there for the Los Al Derby. Cornell, Jeff's top pick in there, trying to give Baffert 8 straight wins in the Los Alamitos Derby. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for the weekend. Again, want to remind you that we've got that promotion. Bet $100 at Churchill Downs and bet $100 at Woodbine on their Saturday cards, and you'll get $25 back. So big promo there this weekend. Scott Shapiro's got some extra handicapping for you on the website for Churchill Downs this weekend, Saturday. You'll also have the Pick Six on closing day Sunday at Churchill. Everything must go, and it's a pretty big carryover right now, over 200,000, I believe, off the top of my head in the carryover at Churchill. So we could have a really big pool Sunday if nobody hits their Rainbow Six between now and Sunday. Also mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six on Sunday at Gulfstream Park. Closing day of the financial fiscal year in Florida. So they have to pay out the Pick Six there at Gulfstream on Sunday. Eddie Olczyk will give you some hat trick best bets. So be sure to check that out on social media at First Bet and Express Bet throughout the course of the weekend. Jeff, give you the final word on the podcast this week.
Well, it's good car. Like I said, good racing, especially at Churchill, but there's a lot of good racing. You mentioned Woodbine. If you, like playing up north of the border, there's plenty of opportunities up there. A few other tracks are presenting good cards. But for me, I was happy to see it because I usually don't dive in too enthusiastically between Santa Anita and Del Mar and Saratoga. I kind of like save my bullets. And it's coming up quick now. A couple of weeks we'll be doing those racetracks and enjoying there. But I'm glad that I found something that I liked. I could be wrong, but I'm going to have a number of best plays on the ExpressBet website for Saturday, concentrating on Churchill and a few other places. So take a look at that. It's always free to ExpressBet members, and we'll see if we can pick a few winners and make a little bit of money. It'd be nice to have while I'm kind of laying low until Saratoga and Del Mar.
Yeah, a little extra money never hurts. He's kind of prop it under the pillow there while you're laying back and relaxing. We'll be back on Tuesday. Jeff and I each Tuesday do the podcast It's Official, where we review 5 hot topics from the previous weekend's racing. You can be sure there's going to be a strong Churchill tinge to this week's edition of It's Official. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.